Ship recycling, where we stand now at this moment. Actually, what I like to do is, what I think is the first priority for ship owners, is to focus in on the IHMs that is be required for ships sailing in European flag or visiting European ports within already 2 years. And what we see in the market, that still most ship owners are waiting till the last minute, and we need to have it. We need to inspect about approximately 30,000 ships within 24 months at this moment. Actually within 22 months, because we need some verification at the end as well. Most ship owners spend a lot of money, did a lot of investments on scrubbers and ballast water management systems, but it would be a little bit silly if you get detained at the end because you miss one simple report that will cost you approximately $5,000 to $10,000. EU ship recycling regulations. It requires an IHM, as I told already, and that IHM is based on Hong Kong Convention MEPC 268-69 actually, guidelines for IHMs. Also, EMSA developed their own best practice guidelines for IHMs, and I will come to that back later. What we have to do, each ship flying the flag of one of the member states needs to have one, and I will go a little bit faster. You have to have on board an inventory of hazardous materials, and at least the hazardous materials referred to Annex 2 for new build ships. For existing ships, you might restrict it to Annex 1, but you need to do the items from Annex 2 according to some class societies and flag states as far as practically possible as well. And that's the point, because practically possible is not defined at the moment, and we think that most of the items mentioned in Annex 2 are practically impossible to inspect on board existing ships, apart from a few. It has to be specific for each ship. So if you have a lot of sister ships, we have to go on board and do the inspection on board each and every single ship, and we need to collect samples on each and every ship. And we see that I have now done myself a series of 15 sister ships, and we see a lot of differences between these ships because they are built in a row, and you see, for example, that asbestos was used till a certain moment, and after that not anymore, but then it came back because they purchased different valves on board. And what we also see that, for example, we find asbestos on most ships, even if they are built till 2013, 2014. All these inventories have to be verified by class societies. So it's not so that if we do the inventory, we're not ready. We have to wait another 2 or 3 months till it's verified. So actually, if we want to be in time, we have to do all the inspections on board before October 2020. That means a lot of work and a very hectic period that we are facing at this moment. And I can tell you that, for example, my company has been ordered already 400 ships till now. So that brings up halfway the ceiling we have in our company. And I see that in other companies as well. So it's time to be as fast as possible, because otherwise you will not have an inventory. A lot of ship owners also think that these inventories are always only required for ships flying a European flag, but that's not true. It depends on if a ship is visiting an EU port or EU anchorage. So that means each type of flag you need to have an IHM on board if you want to go to Europe, if you bring your ship to Europe. That means that we have to do approximately 30,000 ships. What are we doing? The objectives are that we have to provide ship-specific information on actual hazardous materials present on board in order to protect health and safety and prevent environmental pollution at ship recycling facilities. That means that we have, for example, checked for asbestos. And asbestos is on board almost each and every ship we inspected so far, also the newer ones. Even ships built or converted in 2013, we found a lot of asbestos on board. PCBs are almost phased out. This is what we have to check for. This is the complete IHM, what we have to do when we bring a ship for recycling. But we can restrict our inventories for this moment for the ships flying a European flag and not other ships to Table A and Table B as far as practically possible. And we only have to do part 1, so we only check the materials that have been installed on board and not the other materials. As you can see, Table B, as far as practical possible for existing ship before 2020 or when she goes for recycling. And Table B is kind of a problem because we have to check for all kind of flame retardants, plasticizers, and these materials have been used in the past in all kinds of electrical components, and we can't check these because we can't sample them. If we look at the materials and what we should have on board already, most ship owners don't realize that we already should have all the information from Table B already on board apart from PCBs, because asbestos is covered by SOLAS. SOLAS has banned asbestos since 2002 and is requiring an asbestos management plan for ships built before 2002 and has a complete ban since 2011. But the problem is that we have never realized that there are a lot of countries in the world where asbestos is not even banned or not even an issue. So what we have seen in the past years is that it's still used in countries like China, India, Turkey, Romania, everywhere. Even European countries sometimes have a very late asbestos ban, like Spain, for example. Spain banned the asbestos in 2002, and we found asbestos on newer ships as well. For ODS, there are strong MARPOL regulations, and normally on board each and every ship they have an Annex 6 MARPOL ozone depleting logbook, so we know exactly where we can find the ozone depleting substances apart from the insulation materials, because what we don't realize is that we phased out ozone depleting substances, but for example, it is well known fact that China still is using R11 as propellant for polyurethane foam as it is used in most cold stores on board ships. So when a ship is built in China in the last couple of years, it is still suspicious for containing R11 in their insulation materials. What we do have on board is normally we have a TBT and we have enough information based on the International Anti-Fouling Certificate that is on board each and every ship that we inspected so far. PCBs is a problem. PFAS is one of the substances that was introduced by the EU and that we don't have to do for according to Hong Kong Convention, and we only have to check for PFAS on board ships flying a European flag, not for the ships flying one of the flags of the third countries. PFAS is normally to be found on board tankers, for example, as AFFF foam in fixed foam installations. We don't have to check for portable extinguishers because these are not part of part 1 that we have to check for. Asbestos, widely found on board. I already told you what you need to do is a health risk assessment, and there's not a problem with finding asbestos on board when we do the IHM for the EU ship recycling regulation, because when it is installed after 2002, then you have to remove it within 3 years, and if it is installed after 2011, you have to remove it immediately. And I can tell you, when we do the surveys on board, most of the ships we will find some asbestos on board. Sometimes in the gaskets, sometimes as repair material, but on most ships we even find it in the stores and the workshops. And it is still used on board. This is some findings we had the last couple of years. What we can do on board is we can do a very good inventory because there's a lot of expertise worldwide on asbestos. For example, in my country, in the Netherlands, there are 500 trained asbestos experts. They are certified by Dutch government and can do inventories like these on board, and I can guarantee you that we can find approximately 90 to 95% of all the materials that have been applied on board. ozone-depleting substances is not so difficult to inspect as well. Similar to PCBs. PCBs are phased out since the 80s already, so the only thing that we do is check on board with a few wipe samples or paint samples to prove the absence of PCBs on board. TBT, we base our information on the International Anti-Fouling System, and PFAS normally is very well documented on board. The only thing that we have to do is take some samples from the vinyl used as flooring material in the accommodation area. For existing ships, it's very important to find our way back from science to common sense, because what EU published in the EU ship recycling regulation is a long list with all kinds of chemical substances that you will never find on board with a normal survey, like polybrominated biphenyls, polybrominated diphenyl ethers, polychlorinated naphthalenes, radioactive substances. These materials are all plasticizers and flame retardants, so you can find them everywhere. So if we want to do checks on these materials, we have to destroy half your ship. So we simply can't do it. If we want to check for the heavy metals, we have to check all your paint systems. But as you can understand, when a ship is older, all different kinds of paints have been used on board. So how many samples do we have to take to get a representative picture of the kind of paint that is used on board and if it contains one of these heavy metals? Of course, it's simple to find the lead on board when it's used as solid material or used in batteries, for example. Radioactive substances are also not a problem. We can do that with a Geiger counter. So what we think we have to do is that we go back to, for existing ships, not to mention the substances, but go back to waste stream management, what we like to do during the recycling process. So don't do it on board an existing ships. Find these materials when a ship is going for recycling, and it will be within 20-25 years. Because as you can see, that these are all very similar, simple, bring under in all kinds of waste streams, like WEEE waste, plastics, furniture, painted surfaces, liquid or solid metals, chemicals on stock. And all these waste streams you have to bring to, you have to treat well in your upstream or downstream waste management on the recycling facility. If you can see the first one, electrical waste can contain all the materials that is mentioned in table A and B. Another thing is paint systems. As I told you already, it's almost impossible to make a proper, accurate inventory of the hazardous materials contained in the paint systems on board. We can check for lead. We cannot check for chromium-6 because it's simply not possible to take samples for chromium-6, because when you take a sample and you bring it to the laboratory, most of the chromium-6 will react to chromium-3, and you will not find it back as soon as the material is in the laboratory. And if you can understand, this is what paint looks on board a ship. You can see several layers. For us, it's impossible to check for all these layers. Summary, IHM for existing ships is practically possible and meaningful for the Annex 1 items. It's possible to give an indication for heavy metals and paint systems. It's just an indication, we cannot test it to threshold levels. Radioactive components and solid or fluid heavy metals on board like lead or mercury or some. Accurate inventory for most of the Annex 2 items is practically impossible for existing ships during their operational life and almost impossible as part of the end-of-life inspection. Better focus on waste streams and upstream waste management. So this is what I like to tell about it, and I think the most important message is that you have to start with these IHMs before it's too late, because you only have 2 years left. Thank you very much.